Hello again. Hope you had some success with multiplying rational expressions because now we're going to look at dividing rational expressions. It's actually very similar to multiplying, but with dividing, we always flip the second fraction and then we actually are changing division into multiplying. So in the last lesson, we were multiplying fractions. This time when we're dividing, we're going to change it into multiplying. So it is very similar to what we did before, but let me refresh your memories on how we do actually divide fractions. So as just an example with numbers, let's take 3/8 and we're going to divide that by 1/2. So I know that it's been a long time since you've just done fractions like this. We're going to use something that, or it's kind of like a saying that helps you remember what to do. Keep, change, flip. You may or may not remember this, that's fine. And we do actually use this a lot in pre-cal if you're going into that next year because we do deal with fractions. But when we're dividing, we're going to follow that keep, change, flip. So really, it is division, but we're going to change it into multiplication to make it a whole lot easier. So the keep, change, flip, what that is saying is the first fraction, we're going to keep it the same. So the 3/8 is still going to stay as 3/8. But then that's for keep. The change part means we're going to change the multiplication sign, or sorry, the division sign into multiplication. And then the flip is taking this second fraction, we're going to flip it upside down. So instead of 1/2, we're going to write it as 2/1. So we're taking a division, changing it into multiplication, and then it's easier to just multiply across. So then on top, it's the 3 times 2. At the bottom is 8 times 1, which is going to give us 6/8. We are going to reduce every time we can. So if you can divide this one by 2 on top and bottom, 3/4 is going to be our final answer with this. So when we are dividing rational expressions, so that means now with x values, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to follow keep, change, flip. So let's do our first example with rationals. This first example, let's start with 8x over 7 and 2x minus 1. That's going to be our first fraction, and we're dividing by x minus 3, x plus 3, over 2x minus 1, and x plus 3. So again, I know that this looks really crazy. There's a lot of numbers and letters mixed together, and they're in fractions. What I want to start with, because I know it's division, dividing fractions is actually really hard. It's kind of almost impossible to do it in your head. We're always going to change it into multiplication. So following that keep, change, flip is what I would do first. So keeping the first fraction the same, it's still going to be 8x over 7 times 2x minus 1. But then I'm changing division into multiplication. And then for this last fraction, I have to flip it. So the numbers that are at the bottom are now on top. And then the numbers that were on top are now at the bottom. So now it's like what we've done before. You're multiplying rationals. And so the first step that I would do is, before I even multiply, see if you can cancel things out. Make it easier for yourself. So what I notice, there is a 2x minus 1 on top and bottom. I can cancel those out. And there's also an x plus 3. So again, because now we're multiplying, all I have to do for the answer is just write what's left. So on top, it's the 8x. At the bottom, there's still the number 7 by itself, but then there's also that x minus 3. And then this is just my answer. So whatever number is, or whatever numbers are left so you don't cross them off, that's just what your answer is. So this is my answer for this first example. Let's do a couple more, doing the same thing. So for this next example, this one's going to look a little bit different. It'll be 3x minus 1 and x plus 6 on top. At the bottom, x plus 4 with x minus 7. And we're dividing by x squared plus 12x plus 32 over x squared minus 3x plus 28. And I want to divide those. So there's actually two ways you could start this. You could start off with factoring these because they are quadratics, so you could factor them first, then do the division with keep, change, flip, or you can keep, change, flip it first, that way that's out of the way, and then factor. That's what I prefer to do. It does not matter which one you want to do first, but I like to look at, well, if it's division, automatically change it into multiplication first, because I know that that's going to be easier. So my first step is going to be that keep, change, flip. So the first fraction is going to stay the same. I'm not changing anything about it. And then the division is now multiplication, but then that last fraction I'm flipping. So the number that was at the bottom, the x squared minus 3x plus 28 is now on top, and then the x squared plus 12x plus 32 is now at the bottom. So this looks similar then to what we've already done before. Now what I would need to do is factor the quadratics. So using the cross puzzles, the number on top I need two numbers that multiply to 28 but add to -3, which for this one's going to be -7 and 4. Then for the denominator, numbers that multiply to 32 but add to 12. So that's going to be 6 and, no, sorry. Oh, this is 36. Sorry, so that we can use 6 and 6. So factoring, I just need to rewrite them as factors using these two numbers. So again, the first fraction stays the same. I'm not doing anything to it. But then only thing I'm changing here for the second one is I do want to factor it. That way you can start to cross things off. So then my next step would be looking for numbers that are the same on top and bottom. So there is an x plus 6, x minus 7, x plus 4, and then that's it. So then whatever's left on top is a 3x minus 1. At the bottom is an x plus 6. That is my answer. All right, so let's do one last example of division. This one we're going to start with, make it look a little bit longer. X minus 9, or sorry, 2 times x minus 9, and x plus 5 is on top. The bottom is 4, x minus 2, and x plus 3. And again, we're dividing by x squared plus 9x plus 20 over x squared minus 12x minus 45. So looking at this, the second fraction is quadratics. So again, what I would do as my first step is change it into multiplication. So change it into something that we already know how to do. or change it into multiplication because that's a lot easier to do. So I would like to start with the keep, change, flip. Again, you can factor first if you want to, but what I've seen in the past is if you do that first, you'll forget to flip it. So I like to flip it first. So this is going to give me, the first one's still the same, or the first fraction still the same. And then I'm changing it into multiplication where the second fraction is now flipped. So then my next step would be I can factor the quadratics. So using the cross puzzle, I'm going to keep the first one the same. So factoring the top is going to give me x minus 15 and x plus 3. So again, if you still need help with factoring, please ask. At the bottom, this is going to be x plus 4 and x plus 5. Then I can look at canceling things out. So the things that I can cancel, there's an x plus 5 on top and bottom. There's an x plus 3. And remember, you're not going to be able to cancel everything. You may not even be able to cancel anything. But there is one more thing we can do for this. So factors, no. But actually, if I look at numbers out front, think of it as a fraction. I can just reduce them. So if I'm going to, I could divide each thing by 2. That's part of the reducing fraction. So with just numbers, it's just kind of thinking of it as a fraction. So whatever is left, again, is my answer. So numbers on top, technically it's a number 1. When I canceled out this 2, you don't have to write the 1, but the x minus 9 is still there, and the x minus 15. So those are the numbers on top. At the bottom, I do need to still write that number 2 because of reducing that 4. X minus 2 is still there, and x plus 4. And then this is my answer for this question. If you need help or have any questions about division, please ask. Make sure that you are going through the practice assignments then, and you know how to do the Google Forms.